Come in.
Roll call.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Emerson?
Here.
Mr. Frieders?
Here.
Mr. Goodmanson?
Here.
Mrs. Haji-Sheikh? Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Stoddard?
Here.
Mrs. Turner?
Here.
Chairman Petrowski?
Here.
All 9 members present.
Get a approval of the minutes. To move forward. Moved by Mr. Frieders, seconded by Mr. Emerson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Motion to approve the agenda for tonight. Moved by Ms. Turner, seconded by Ms. Haji-Sheikh. Any discussion? Oh, yes.
I'd like to move to strike number 7, make an amendment, striking that from.
There are 2 number 7s.
Oh, they are.
Oh, good.
So I'm assuming you mean the first one because
The
you don't
first
want to
note.
strike the approval of the county board agenda.
Man, I just...
First number.
Now, just as a point of clarification, that was going to be, I believe, just a discussion item. But you don't even want it discussed, or?
I'd just soon take it off. I think the county's doing everything they're supposed to be doing.
Okay, so we have an amendment. Do we have any, do we have a second on the amendment? Second. Okay, Mr. Frieder seconds.
So do we have a discussion now?
Yes, we have discussion on the amendment.
Right. Well, I thought that we had decided a while back that instead of taking things off the agenda before we talked about them, that we'd leave it on and then, discuss it and then, decide whether we were going to go ahead and, move it forward or not.
Seeing that it's a discussion item, I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, we're not making any decision on it, correct? It's just
Correct.
discussing it.
This was, and I'll remind people.
I
this
won't
was-
throw anything at you, John.
No, no. So this was,
I might.
just as a reminder, this was, Mr. Stoddard had recommended that we put this as a discussion item on this month's executive committee agenda to discuss. I don't know if you want to give any more further information.
Well,
about
I mean,
it.
I think I'd like to see us talk about the possibility of doing this just to increase the ability of the public to see what we do, since much of what the county board actually does is done in these committee meetings. So I would argue vehemently against dropping this from the agenda.
Any other discussion on the amendment? Okay, do we have a vote on all those in favor of the amendment to strike the first number 7, the placement of county board committee meeting recordings on the county's website discussion? Say aye.
Aye.
And then all those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote just to.
Let's see. Mr. Brown?
Nay.
Mr. Emerson?
Yay.
Mr. Frieders?
Yes.
Mr. Goodmanson?
Yes.
Mrs. Haji-Sheikh?
No.
Mr. Jones?
No.
Mr. Stoddard?
No.
Mrs. Turner?
No.
Chairman Petrowski?
No.
Motion failed.
So now we have a. Okay, so there was a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion on the rest of the agenda? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Public comments. Are there any public comments out in the gallery? I will say that I almost didn't recognize you at first. I didn't notice that was a purse right there, and I thought they were overalls at first, Sandra, and I was like, oh, somebody came in. I'm like, oh no, that's Sandra, and it's totally just a purse strap. So, so that was a quick glance up, and I just saw the one, and John was blocking one the other shoulder. So anyway, no public comments. Okay, we'll move on to number 5, chair's comments. I am not going to speak very much this month. There's not a whole lot to say. I do want to, and I believe, Gary, you'll mention about Donna Moulton's.
And we have a card.
There's
to
a card
pass
going
Yes,
around.
there's the card going around. So
We can put that in the audience, maybe.
Yeah.
yeah, and I'll sign there at the end here. So I don't know if you want to give a brief just now. Just
I can do that.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you've seen the Facebook page, but they're having a celebration of life service for Donna Moulton's husband on October 3rd at Blooming Gardens. And it's, I believe it starts at 4:30 with a service at 6:30.
And for those of you who aren't placing that name, Donna Moulton's the director of our community action department here at the county. All right, so I will go ahead and move on to, we have next up is the approval of the appointments. If you want to take a look real quick at just the appointments that we have coming up. And let me know if there's anything that you have questions about or want to pull out. Otherwise, could I get a motion to approve moving these names forward? Moved by Ms. Turner. Do we have a second? Seconded by Mr. Jones. And any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And now we'll go to the first, number 7. And since this was an agenda item that you wanted on here, Mr. Stoddard, I will let you kind of
All right.
lead off.
Yeah, as I said earlier, much of the business that we conduct, we really conduct in the committee meetings. The paper, the press in general, I don't see him here tonight, for example, very seldom covers these meetings. And since we are public servants, I feel strongly we should be doing our work in the eyes of the public. And so even though we're not obliged to do it, even though it really is up to the paper and the media to cover this for us or for any concerned citizens to come, we all know that people's lives are busy and it's not always practical for them to come if they're even aware of what's going on. And I just think it's you know, if it doesn't cost us very much, it's one way to just increase our visibility, let people know what we're doing, make sure that they're not caught by surprise when big issues do come up occasionally. So I just think it would be a really good idea to stream our committee meetings much the same way we do the full board meeting. Whether that's better done with video or we can do it with just audio, I'm very open to discussion on that, but I think some sort of more in-depth recording of what goes on in the committee meetings would be in the public's interest.
We have the minutes on the website, correct?
Right, in the
Okay.
minutes, I mean, yes, we do, and
Okay.
so they can see that, but I think you get a fuller understanding of what's going on if you actually see what's going on.
You know, the only downside of the minutes is they don't get published until they've been approved, so that.
True, okay.
No, that's not true anymore.
Oh,
They
they are?
used to be,
Oh,
but
good.
we now put them out as soon
Subject
as,
to being approved.
as soon as they're done, and we
Oh,
put a
good.
disclaimer on that you need to check back once they're final, but,
Talk about streaming them live.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's...
How much would that cost?
that streaming live would be expensive because
Yes.
we're gonna have to have additional staff in
Right.
here to
Okay.
do that. But
Okay.
if, I thought you originally were just talking
Well,
about taking our audio recording that we're doing
Oh,
and
okay.
posting that on the website, and that's very, very
All right, see, and
minuscule
that'd be,
cost.
you know, that's, yeah, that'd be fine.
Only the problem sometimes that
If the
if you
quality of
have,
that's
it's just
good.
like, right, or, and the other thing, you know how like if you send like a text to someone or you send an email to someone, it can come across differently than what the intent really was, you know, because of
You don't see
when you
facial
read it, you don't see
expressions, you don't
facial
see
expressions,
tone.
you don't see the,
You don't
know,
hear.
the tones, and so you're hearing, you know, something, but
But I would also argue then that just posting the minutes actually is exactly that problem.
well, it is.
And if you can hear the discussion, you can tell when everybody laughs afterwards that was supposed to be a joke.
Right.
Or if they don't laugh, it
Not
wasn't.
necessarily.
No.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
But I mean, but you do get a better sense of, you know, what people were thinking and how they felt about things. Was it a very cut and dried discussion? Were people yelling? I mean, that type of stuff would come out that you won't see in the minutes.
How many
You know.
times? I know. I'm just thinking
Committee's
the
yelling.
last time that we, you
Yeah,
know,
I don't think that.
Oh, I can remember a few.
well, that's years ago.
I just think that the public has an obligation to show an effort
I agree.
to know what's going on. And I think you can make it simple as much as you want, and the public still has an obligation to show an interest. And we put the minutes out, and it is up to the public to show an interest. And I think that the newspaper isn't even showing an interest right now. And we need to obviously meet the requirements that are set forth by the statutes and by the law. But after that, I think it is up to the public to show an interest and come to. The meetings are posted, the agendas are posted, and we stick to those guidelines, obviously. And if they have an interest, they need to come to the meetings and find out and take part in the meetings. They can come and speak. We give everyone an opportunity to speak their mind and partake in the meeting but both ways with us. And I think that is extremely important. And for us to keep hand feeding what's going on here, they have to come and partake with us.
I have a suggestion. On lots of different websites, there's a clicker, and you can tell how many times somebody has looked at that particular thing. It might be interesting to see how many times people are reading the minutes.
Yeah, we can
And if
see
we
what
saw
the
that
date is.
there was a need, for people, a lot of people reading the minutes.
And do you have any idea how many people look at our monthly meetings?
We were just saying that
Yeah, we were talking
it's
about
more
that
than we
beforehand.
thought, but I don't have any current data, but
Okay.
it's more than just 1 or 2 people. I would say you're in the 20 to 30 range if I had to guess.
Oh, okay.
But I'll get that data because it changes over time.
Is that 20 or 30 people watching the live stream of the monthly?
I'll have to see if we can distinguish between the live stream and
And
then
how many
we
people
just
watch
put
the
the
video?
recorded meeting out
Right.
as well, so you could watch it the next day or the next week if you want to.
My question is, do you know who those people are? They're not people in this room watching it.
Well, there
Well-
is one person that watched it.
I'm just curious how many outside of the,
There'd be a couple, obviously, we monitor as the meeting's going on, so we're, Jones Department's live streaming it, or watching the live stream themselves, so they know it's going okay, but that'd only be 1 or 2. I'm
Only
guessing
people
board
in
members aren't
Jones
watching it.
20.
Are you watching it? Do you watch it during the meeting? I didn't know if you
No,
did or not.
Riley did.
Mr.
Oh,
Chairman.
Riley, I knew that someone, I thought someone did.
I feel like at the committee levels, when we're sitting at a small table, what I've noticed throughout the years is that even timid ones will speak up more. I think there's already a recorder there, there's already notes being given, and it seems to me that if we add more and keep adding more, and I'm not saying that's wrong, I'm just saying that maybe some committee members won't be speaking at the committee meetings. I think at the full county board meetings, it seems like to me that you have media there, you have a lot of people sitting there, there's less, to me, I think there's less communication and debate because of all of that. I think if we bring all of that into committee, I think there's going to be less discussed. And I think at the committee meetings, there is a lot discussed and talked about. And that is then funneled to the full county board. That's what I'm afraid of, is that it's going to be less discussion. I can understand Paul's viewpoint is a good one, very, very good one. I would agree with that, but that more people need to be made aware. At the same token, we're trying to do a job, at the committee level, talk it over, and even the department heads like to mess around and joke around a little bit, and somebody may take it wrong too. I'm probably guilty. I know I'm guilty of saying the wrong things. I'm sorry, Paul, I am. You guys been around long enough, I've tried to tone it down through the years.
And the meetings have
You've
suffered
done well
for
with
it.
that, John. Yeah.
There's value in that.
Yeah.
The meetings were much more interesting when you were.
No, we had some.
No, I'm sorry for that, but, and I'm gonna be gone soon, and you guys, if you wanna bring it back up again, that's fine. But I feel like, that it is a good place for the committee members to talk freely, and not to talk so much like I used to talk, but I think I have made important gains at the highway department, and sometimes I just couldn't get through. And I'm sorry, I had be that way, but it has really, really improved with our county engineer, and the staff has improved, and things are much, much better.
Just real quick, just so everybody knows too, so currently, any of the audio recordings for any of our committee meetings can be FOIA'd. So anybody can listen to them and anything like that. One of the things too, because sometimes people will bring up ADA kind of accessibility, if somebody wasn't able to read the minutes and everything like that, obviously we would make available those recordings for them and everything. The debate really is how, do you put every single thing on there, or do you allow individual people that want these minutes to be able to FOIA those and request those? So that's kind of what the discussion's about, because again, anybody can listen to any of them. It's just a matter of, do you have it on the website, or do you just have it done for you and get it?
You mentioned ADA, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
You mentioned ADA, and that is very important to keep in mind. I know the city of DeKalb has had some issues with ADA compliance. And if you just put something out there, just minutes out there, or just a recording out there, they still have to be ADA compliant. So if somebody can't see, then there has to be another way to get the minutes. Or if they can't hear, there has to be another way to get minutes. So the more you put on there, you have to take that into consideration, because that may add costs as well.
I really agree with what Mr. Frieder said. If anybody's been paying attention, I'm a little disenchanted with the public at the moment because they don't seem to want to do their homework and figure out what they're supposed to do. And, I'm getting tired of spoon feeding, frankly.
Well, what's happened is the people, because I see it with my students, what people do nowadays is they read sound bites, and they just read the little, just the headlines, and that's it. And they don't read in depth, and they don't read more than one side of the view. They don't, they just, and they get all of their things, from, headlines and or stuff, that they see through, social media stuff, and everything, and don't take the time to educate themselves, on the total matter instead of just reading, headlines and everything. And, you can, we find at school that we have kids that it's learned helplessness, okay, because we spoon feed them so much that they're like, oh, why didn't you do this for me, and it's like, you got to do some stuff yourself. And we need to get back to that and teach kids how to, and people, in general, how to do stuff. And so I totally agree with, isn't it? I agree with Tom. We do. We spoon them too
Marge
much.
first, and then Sue L.
Yeah, I just wanted to pose the point. I agree that there are a lot of people who don't do the work, don't do their research, and I would argue that the answer to that is not less information but more. That we don't help the public learn about the nuances or the complicated arguments that we have with each other at committee meetings by hiding that information. I think that there's a lot of benefit to be gained from people. I mean, when I'm in committee, my mind is not made up yet, right? That's how our process works here. And I hear the arguments of my colleagues and my mind changes, sometimes 5 or 6 times in a meeting. And I think there's benefit to letting the public in on that nuanced discourse.
Sue.
I think it's good that the recordings are available. I don't understand exactly the details and ins and outs of the FOIA things. Would it be possible just to have them available upon simple request rather than having to do a whole FOIA? Or is that not?
The
person
is very
gets to
simple.
The person chooses how they're going to ask for it, and if they FOIA it, they're guaranteed to get what they want.
But a lot of times it's a simple email message to the county, and then they get it within
FOIA's appear to
days.
be pretty simple.
I've just never done it.
Mr. Brown.
I have some kind of random thoughts that kind of tug of war with each other. I think of who really wants to listen to our committee meetings, and I think, well, I say that in all honesty because sometimes our agendas are a little flat. Really, with all the competition that what you could do that evening. And yet the ones that the public wants to listen to the most are the controversial ones. And the controversial ones are the ones that we really would like them to be there present and contributing rather than sitting at home, getting upset and jabbering and making up, rumors as what they heard. So I'm kind of twixt-tween there. I know you can't ahead of time say, well, watch Thursday night because that's going to be a controversial. Tune in. The other thought I had, educational. Probably the September Finance Committee meeting, correct me if I'm wrong, whichever one that kind of lays it all out the first time, is very educational. And everyone, including the 8th grade civic class, could benefit from listening to that, and so forth. I move along, I get thinking, gee, I trust that executive session items do not get put on, okay.
Right.
And that tends to be where some real hearty discussion can take place in those sessions. So we're missing part of our gem when we cannot, go out of executive session. Then the third part, and I think we have a great woman from the Chronicle who's covering many of our meetings, so I'm not directing this toward her directly, but even the media could stay at home and listen versus come to the meeting and cover it if it got to that point. And I certainly think we want the media here participating and and getting all angles at the same time. So I wouldn't want to do anything that caused some people to skip coming to a meeting because of access.
Mr. Whalen, you had a...
Yeah, the good point is just a couple of weeks ago, planning and zoning, had a lot of people show up at the meeting. So they had, because they had interest in it. They didn't want this big gas tank sitting out there on the front lawn. But at least they voiced their opinion, they showed up. When we have some issues, like Bob mentioned, the controversial issues or big issues, they will show up at the meeting and listen to it and voice their opinion. But I've been to some of the highway committee meetings when we talk about some of the things, and there was nobody there, not even the media. So I understand your viewpoint on that, very much so. Like you said, you can't really start feeding them the information. If they want to come to that meeting and learn what's going on, I think it's a good point to get them to show up.
Well,
Yeah, I hear what people are saying, and given what Gary said about the cost of live streaming it versus the ease of just making the recording available, if it's not going to cost us anything to do it, if it's really not much effort to do it, I'm assuming it's not much effort.
No, once we have the procedure set up.
Then, I even if it's only a handful of people who take advantage of that option, it's a handful of people we're reaching who can see what we're doing.
And a handful of people who understand the issues that we're voting on a little bit better.
Yeah. And even on the controversial ones, maybe there are people who want to be there but can't because they have to stay home with a child or somebody else or whatever.
Mr. Lipke.
Well, of course, the other angle on that too is probably the greatest portion of our voters might be, say, how should we put it, 58 and older, and some might be interested in hearing but not be able to make it to a meeting. And they would be appreciative of being able to go ahead on the website and just, okay, let's listen in on this committee meeting. And catch more than just one meeting, They may catch a controversial one once in a while, but they catch a routine too. And they see you working. That's what they're going to hear.
You're going to say that they aren't going to be able to figure out how to get on that website.
Maybe help from their grandkids.
There's
Okay,
some
yep. Mr. Bragman.
Mr. Chairman, if through you I could ask the county administrator, would it be a good thing to have sort of a limit on the number of months or years that we keep active out on the public web server, understanding that any of this would be foible over time? Would it be a good policy to sort of limit the number of active links to these?
I think so. If you were going to do a policy, I'd probably ask you not to keep more than either 6 months or a year. Right now, we keep on the county board meetings, we keep a rotating 12 months.
Yes.
I'm curious to hear the county attorney's opinion of having the recordings out there. I know as a private attorney and working for a corporation, I would be a little concerned if I wasn't a public corporation.
to have that audio out there. So I would be curious to hear what Commissioner Shine.
Just as a follow, would it be the concern of just the ability to edit the audio and just if somebody says something and they can be taken out of context or
You
anything?
bring up a
Okay.
very good point. I mean, websites can get hacked. The information can be pulled. Are you ready to hear your voice on a soundbite on CNN? For something
Apparently Stoddard is. He'd be sharing that link on his Facebook page. Check it out. But yeah, no, but it's a good point. And when we talked about this last month, just putting it on the ballot, I know my reservations were the fact that it gets tough if it's just audio because you can't always pick up on facial expressions and what people really mean by that, and things can be taken out of context. Now, that could still happen if you have a video feed that they just take the audio feed from and not the video. I understand that. So it's tough, and I do want to say, though, too, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, that out of all the Illinois counties and stuff, we are still one of the most transparent. Correct? I mean, I'm all in transparency. And okay.
But don't tell anybody.
Well, but, okay. So we're saying that it's better to have people listen to it than read it? People need to read. No matter what it is, they need to still take the time to read something.
And the availability of these are still
It's still available. And so, but if they're too lazy, to go ahead and to read something, that's, I mean, that's really what it amounts to. You can't take the time to read, something like this. It doesn't take that long. You can read it and proof it if you want to, or something. But I don't know. I just think that, if you get to that point where people aren't even willing to read, a couple pages of a, committee report. I mean, this is from Forest Preserve and it's 3 pages long. And it's double, it's not double spaced, but it's 1.5 space.
Natasha does a great job of
Yes, you do a fabulous job. And so it's, read them.
Right. Now, one of the things
I need to turn it so right.
one of the things I do want to say though, real quick too, is kind of going off of Marge's point though, and a little bit against what you were saying, John, is that my philosophy has always been with as representatives elected by the people, it's our duty to reach out to the voters that have 3 kids that have soccer practice and everything else, and they don't have the time to necessarily sit down and read minutes from every single meeting, to just say, hey, this is what went on that might affect you personally or something like that, or come to this meeting if you're interested in these things, but to have that dialogue still too. So they do have a role. I agree, John, they do have a role that they have to be proactive, but we have to be proactive as well to reach out to them about things, because one of the first reasons I ran for this county board was because of issues with the landfill expansion and how there wasn't that communication necessarily in Cortland and other areas. So there's got to be that back and forth.
But it's not like we're not putting stuff out there.
It's out there in the media
and it's out
everything.
there.
Yeah. No,
but I mean, it's on our website.
Yeah.
And like Gary said, now we've got them before they're even approved. So so it is so there is information.
So we just have
out
to communicate
there for
that too,
yes.
that it's out
yes.
there,
that it's out there, and we have it available. Right.
It's out there.
It's recorded and it's written.
Yes.
I do, and I think most of everybody in the room has their frickin' cell phone on the county website.
We do, and they can call us too. Yep,
But they don't.
Yep. But if it's important enough, they do.
They've called me at 3 in the morning.
We've gotten
Yeah, I've had 4:30 in the morning.
Oh, that was Wind Farm?
Yeah.
Wind Farm, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any more discussion? I think we've kind
I have
of,
people calling me about.
we've all had a voice on this and everything.
Do you want to bring it back next month?
Well, at some point, I think we should vote one way or the other on whether to do it.
Do we have any consensus on this board? Do we want to bring this up again? Would we fine with tonight being the discussion on it? Do we want to drop it? What are some, do we want to vote on if we bring it back up for discussion, or do we want to just?
I would take if a straw vote shows that there's interest in doing it.
Do you want to do a
then
formal motion, or do you want to?
Well, we introduced this as a discussion topic, so I don't feel comfortable.
No, just to move it on to further the discussion or
All right.
something, not to pass it or anything.
All right, well, sure, I move that we bring this back for discussion and a vote, a definitive vote next month.
Do we have a second? Seeing
All
a
right.
lack of a second, we'll drop this topic. Okay, so we'll now move on to
Number 7, number 2.
number 7, number 2, yeah. Ms. Haji-Sheikh.
Okay, well, at Health and Human Services, we have no action this month. What we did at our meeting was we had our new health director come and talk to us. Unfortunately, she didn't have any numbers for us, and so we spent our meeting quizzing her about things that the health department does, which was very informational and worthwhile. But what the outcome of all of that is the tax levy that they were interested in, that the health department's interested in, will be discussed next month,
Now,
when we have some information to work with.
she did mention that they are hard at work on the information.
They are.
Yep.
She just didn't have any that night. And the other thing is, you know, from the committee, our deepest condolences to Donna Moulton. She has been a big part of our committee. She has come, she is enthusiastic, she has gone above and beyond a lot for us. And we as a committee just couldn't be sorrier, and we wish her the best.
One thing I might just mention, Misty, we need to think about with that memorial service the night of your meeting, whether you're going to want to move your meeting time or not, because she works so closely with your committee. I'll just throw that out for you and your fellow members to think about.
We moved this month.
Yeah, I know. And it's not easy to move a meeting, but it's just, this is unusual. So.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gilmanson.
County Highway Committee met the first Thursday of the month, and we didn't have any actionable items. County engineer did set a date for everyone to go on a bus highway transportation tour. So that's coming up, I think it was the 1st or 19th September.
I am.
It's next week.
Do you know the exact date? I'm not.
I thought it was the 19th.
I can't remember the exact
That'd be a
date.
Monday.
Is it a
Monday.
Tuesday?
It's not.
It's a
not Monday.
Tuesday.
Yeah, I think it's next.
Is it Tuesday the
It might be
20th?
the 20th.
He gave me the agenda already, but, so I think it's the Tuesday.
Okay.
And that's typically a 9 to about 2:30 event.
Yeah, then we'll go out for lunch.
Mhm.
So everyone's welcomed. I think in the past that I've neglected to say that, so. That tour for
Tour. When is the
for
tour?
the county tour, Tuesday.
This coming Tuesday?
Yeah.
What time?
Usually we meet at the highway department at 9 a.m.
9 a.m. It'll be out in the weekly agenda.
And they have been studying on Salmonock Road, the bridge there that they're supposed to replace this year. They did find a clam there, or some mussels.
It's the mussel.
It was a muscle.
It's about mussels. Anyhow, they gotta be careful when they're taking the bridge down. So, or move the mussel other way. So, and I think county engineer did say that where we were talked about the state of Illinois, DeKalb County was part of that 4 cents tax. Didn't sound like it was going to be coming to a vote until after the election. That's about, I think, all I've got to comment.
Yeah, I want to go back just for a second. Since Gary mentioned we might want to move our meeting, I'm looking on my calendar, and I believe that the next Monday, which would be the 10th, is Columbus Day. Is that a holiday
Yeah,
as
so
well?
so we can't do it on that day. So it's very limited.
Thank you.
Cancel it.
Yeah. Oh,
Why
but
don't you just
that one-
cancel it? You could
Yeah.
cancel it, Misty. Just cancel the meeting for that month.
Well, no, they need to bring it up because of the
tax.
Oh, the tax
About the
levy,
tax
okay.
levy.
Okay.
I would have canceled it for this month had I known in advance we had no data
Yeah.
to work with. But I didn't know that until we were already sitting in the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Emerson.
Planning and Zoning Committee has a special use permit request for an agribusiness by the Dibble Family LLC. Maplehurst Farms owns the property, and Dibbles wants to buy it, but they want the permit first. They have two 30,000-gallon tanks put on the property and have a station so they can fill up their little transport trucks and fill 1,000-gallon tanks out in the country. Mr. Jones made the motion, and it was seconded by Ms. Willis. The vote was 5 yes and 1 no, with Ms. Turner voting against it. Ms. Willis has a few things to say, and I'd like to yield to her first.
Okay, so, I just lose my picture. All right, so the hearing officer had recommended against approving this, citing safety concerns, and in particular the fire in Gurnee. Now, it's not very often that my own professional expertise is particularly useful to these kinds of things, but this happens to be one of those cases. So why do I know about these things? This comes from my career as an experimental high energy physicist, and in particular I dealt with compressed gases at Los Alamos National Laboratory and also at Fermilab, including flammable gases. We did not deal with propane, but we did deal with ethane and methane and hydrogen. I have no relationship whatsoever with Dibble. They don't supply Fermilab as far as I know, and I wasn't involved with procurement anyway. So basically what I did is use what I know, and then also looked around quite a bit on the web. And what I found on the web is that these very large propane tanks are actually very safe. The safety standards for them have been improved over the years. The primary, you don't have to worry about the, one thing I was worried about was the valve breaking off. But most of those valves is internal, so you can break off the external part and the rest of the tank is still fine. So that won't hurt. Basically what you worry about with those things is the thing that's called the boiling liquid expanding vapor explosion. So you heat it up enough to where the liquid inside turns to gas, and then eventually, if you keep that up, the tank can possibly explode. They have relief valves on them to prevent that, and so in order for the tank to explode, you would have to have fire outside the tank that was hot enough and fast enough to overcome those relief valves. So I looked at accidents that have involved these tanks. They've been in grass fires. That's not hot enough. They've been in traffic accidents. These things are, they're tanks. That is not enough to damage them. Most of the accidents have taken place in train crashes or decades ago, before some of the current safety things were involved. So what it takes is a very hot fire outside the tank for a long time to get it to fail. People were concerned about the Gurnee fire, so I looked at the news reports of that, and what the Gurnee company was involved in the business of doing was taking those little propane tanks like y'all have on your barbecue, and they repaired and refurbished and refilled them. So there were piles of hundreds of those. And there's a picture of that fire. What's burning is those. And I actually called the Gurnee Fire Department and spoke to a representative of the fire chief, and they said that they could reassure, and that was the word that they used, reassure both the board and the residents that the large tanks were not involved in that fire. I also found my favorite guys, the Mythbusters, who tried to replicate a scene from a movie which involved I think about 100-pound tank. It was one of the ones that's about these tall. And in the movie, a guy shoots it with a pistol. The thing catches on fire, and he escapes in the ensuing explosion. So they shoot with the thing with a pistol that bounces off. You cannot penetrate these with a pistol. So they go to a high-powered rifle. They were able to penetrate it, and again, this is a smaller tank and therefore thinner. They were able to penetrate it with a rifle, but even using tracer bullets, the thing still didn't explode. It just, stuff went out, and that was it. They finally packed the Mythbusters, so they packed C4 all over the thing and finally blew it up. But so don't do that. So my conclusion was that we're talking about two isolated tanks. From all the drawings that we were given and the description of the operation, I don't see any amount of other flammable material around there. There are not piles of little things burning that could burn around there. All the propane will be handled by employees. You know, you're not going to have members of the general public coming up and messing with these things. And so my evaluation was that the risk was very, very low. And therefore I did not see that we had, on the basis of risk, reason to turn the petition down. And so I recommended that we approve the installation of these tanks. I also suggested that we limit to just the two, so that if they want to put in more, they have to come back to us and say we want more. And so that was what passed the committee.
Sue, did you give any thought to lightning strikes?
Yes, these things have been struck by lightning. I was not, and not caught on fire. I was not able to find an instance of a fire that was caused by lightning.
And tornadoes would blow them around, but they wouldn't blow up.
That would be hard to imagine. I mean, as Mark pointed out, a tornado went through Fairdale, where people had the smaller ones, and there were not any propane fires.
Yep, we got it.
You got it, right. As I say, most of the fires were either train crashes or things that happened 20, 30, 40 years ago with earlier designs.
Mr. Bungie, did you have a comment?
I was just going to mention Fairdale, we should get to before I did.
Okay. Tim, did you have?
No, nothing except the only concern is whether that would have any value on property, whether it would have an effect on property values. And given that probably the highest and best use of that particular parcel is some form of agribusiness, there are a lot of things I could imagine that could be put there that would probably be more detrimental to the look and feel of that immediate neighborhood than a couple of these tanks.
Well, and they're talking about putting plantings around them, so they would not be visible anyway, and they'll have concrete bunkers around them, so that. And
chain link fence.
Yeah. So were there to be a traffic accident, the concrete bunkers would presumably deflect cars, so they're not near the intersection.
Right. That was brought up too about possible crashes at the intersection or something. Where the tanks are going to be is like 700-800 feet away from the intersection. It's nowhere near the road.
Well, and the other thing I looked up since the committee meeting was in these explosions, I found a site for firefighters with recommendations if they're dealing with a fire at one of these things. The recommended distance that you get away from a 1,000-pound tank, or 1,000-gallon tank rather, is 300 feet. The furthest distance that anyone has been injured from, and by the way, these things tend not to, when they fail, they tend to disintegrate. They don't turn into rockets. So what you have is shrapnel. So the furthest distance away from these things, including all of the accidents that I was able to find over the years, that anybody was injured by a piece of shrapnel from one of these things, was 800 feet. So that's, if the thing does blow up, that's the furthest away that somebody has been injured from one of these things.
Just one other piece of anecdotal information.
Oh, and just real quick, I do just want to point out, obviously there was a public hearing about this, so the members that are talking and everything, it's either personal experience or it's based on the public hearing information. So just so we're all aware, and we're not introducing new evidence or anything like that. So. Okay. Yes. Sorry.
Mine barely fits in that, so I won't.
Well, personal experience, I think, is that personal experience is fine.
The two large tanks out of Wascom, there's a yard out there. They were there before the school. The school's only 500 foot away. The state, nobody's going to allow the school to go in if there is a safety issue in 500 foot from those
And there are state regulations regulating these type of businesses and everything like that too. Any other discussions or questions? Yes.
Well, the residents have said that they will sue, right, if
Mhm.
this gets passed.
He doesn't want to sue me.
I'm sorry?
Sorry, I couldn't hold it in.
But yeah, we're saying that's correct. They've said that, yes,
And
publicly.
so, you know, we've obviously declined to approve some other things when a number of residents were not in favor of what we were working on. And so I just wonder how much that has to play into this. I agree, an agribusiness is the perfect solution for that location, but when you have so many people against it in the neighborhood, what do we do?
Mr. Emerson.
If the neighborhood would have presented credible evidence rather than what they wanted, just the fabrication they came up with, if the things actually blew up, I have a 12,000 gallon one, 150 feet from my house. I'm not worried about it.
Well, and they specifically spoke to the Gurney fire, which is why I looked into it. And as I say, I called the Gurney Fire Department, and that was a very different situation, and I don't know that they know that.
So yeah, so I mean,
they didn't seem especially mollified when I said that.
yeah, the committee was definitely basing on the facts presented and all the evidence, and then Sue's experience, Kevin's experience, and then additional research based on the evidence that was presented. So,
Right.
yeah. Mr.
Mr.
Whale.
Chairman, if
Yeah.
they want to see a 30,000 gallon tank, if they haven't seen one, go to the corner of Pleasant Street and Peace Road, right there at the gas place. There's a big...
AmeriGas, yeah.
Yeah, AmeriGas has got a huge tank sitting right there. That's the size of the tank they're talking about. I think mostly the people are saying that aesthetically, it's make sure that they put the shrubbery, because I said on planning and zoning when we did the FS one over on Annie Glidden and Old State Road. That's FS, now it's CHS, I believe.
So if you're on Old State and Glidden, you're talking Bingham's tank. and-
Right,
Yeah,
so
our
big tank
Bingham's,
there.
that's,
country
The only
gas.
thing they haven't
Okay.
done is they did promise to put shrub around it, because, just to make this.
And that tank, FYI, is not even burned. There's a fence around the piping, but there's no berm to prevent a car from running into it. It's probably 50 feet from the road. I drive by it 20 times a day, every time I go down.
Bob.
Can I ask a question as to whether something was brought up at the hearing?
Yeah, I
think so. You could do
think so.
that.
Yeah. if
I'm not leading the.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you
Was the,
way you're handling it.
as far as precedent of use of the property, was the past 50-year history of that parcel discussed at all?
I don't
No.
believe so. No.
Oh.
Just what it was currently zoned for, I believe, right?
Yeah,
Just
and the
so
most
far as-
recent-
This is the most recent use.
Only so far as to discuss the existing building that was not as desirable to look as it was, and that this, at least aesthetically, would not be downhill.
I mean, the property is gonna look really nice when it's done.
Any other discussion on this? Okay, thank you very much.
And
Oh.
could I speak about the 4-H extension meeting?
Of course you can. Oh, yes, thank you. And Bob and I both thank you very much. Bob had another meeting. That was the night of the economic development meeting, so I had to be there. So
That's okay.
John filled in for all of us.
I'm a member of the
He was
committee,
Mr.
so-
DeKalb County. Yeah.
So I was there, and Boone and Ogle County put in more money than DeKalb County does, but Bob, is that they have like Health and Human Services in
And each of them have
Boone and
a,
McHenry.
they have their own tax referendum.
They have their own tax referendum, but basically, they have not gotten any state money in the last 2 years. So none of their employees have had a raise in the last 2 years, and basically, most everything will be given up except 4-H if, Springfield doesn't ever get their act together. But, so I was there and the meeting went fine, but, they just don't have any money.
Did they make requests for more, or did they just say, look,
Well,
we're just
they
monitoring?
know that there's not any more to
Okay.
give.
Well, yeah. it's just-
Yeah, I made that clear.
Okay.
Did they say when they might run out of money?
They've got enough money they've got a reserve which will take care of them for next year. And then after that, it'll get interesting.
And DeKalb County? Did they say the same thing, that they have enough for the next year since they don't have a referendum?
Well, basically, yeah.
Aren't the three counties together?
Yeah.
Yeah. Except
That's that joint board.
The other two, Ogle and Boone, have referendums, and we never passed a referendum. So we just funded to a certain extent. So that
Thank you
was
very
that.
much. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Frieders.
Law and Justice Committee has no action items, but we are planning a tour of the Sober Living House for our next committee meeting, as one of the, we'll be meeting at the site on the fourth Monday of the month at 6:30. Anyone who would like to tour the site is welcome. There's still some ongoing issues at the house, and so it would be a good opportunity to see progress or lack thereof, and get a first-hand look at what's going on. Gary, anything you'd like to add about that tonight?
No, I just would encourage anybody to get this firsthand look, because we are still dealing with a lot of issues.
So that would be Monday, the fourth Monday of the month.
26th, I think.
26th.
Would you be able to send out an invitation to all the county board members, Tasha, about the opportunity to go?
26. 6:30 at the.
And correct me, that technically that would still be their meeting, right? So that would be open to the public as well?
Yes, absolutely.
And we will be coming back here afterwards for the rest of our meeting, if anyone would like to join us afterwards.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
Well, as Chairman Rittman said, I was out of town the night of our Economic Development Committee meeting last week.
Oh, yeah.
But Vice Chair Whalen did a good job leading the program and informing me of what took place. Two or three things I'd highlight. We had the annual report of Debbie Armstrong, Convention Visitors Bureau Executive Director. And here's her most recent email that she sent to all of us, but in case you haven't had a chance to look at it, I made a copy. It just came out last week. And the big announcement is that we're continuing to have an upward trend of dollars being brought into the county, now up to $91.3 million, a 3.33% increase. And we've had increases in each of the last 7 years. So that's headed the right direction. Right there. She also called attention to the busy autumn season we have, packed with all sorts of events. And the current issue of Travel Illinois, if you haven't seen it yet, features two of DeKalb's finest, Whiskey Acres and Donomac Orchards, for things you can do this fall in Illinois. So I know Debbie was real tickled to have that lead.
Mr. Whalen's got a
I
copy
have
of
a
it.
couple extra if anybody wants one tonight.
And
You can have those.
they're coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah, you're welcome to them if you want.
I forget what the distribution is on those, but it's in the hundreds of thousands that they get out. Thank you for that. Yeah. On the Convention Visitors Bureau board is a representative of Shabna Lake State Park. And I've been a bit remiss getting to my age and not really taking advantage of Shabna Lake. I had left home before it was built, and then when I came back, got busy with family and this and that, and just didn't get down fishing much or anything. So the last 2 days, my wife Donna and I have spent at Shabna Lake. We stayed overnight, showered outside, did the whole bit.
Wow.
I caught a bluegill, just like old times. So I passed this around to promote Shabna Lake.
Is there pictures in your shower?
No. We didn't go till 11 o'clock. It's pretty quiet. If there's a real angler among us, there's outdoor fishing. Shabna Lake is the #1 muskie lake in the state. My little bluegill didn't measure 52 inches like some of the top muskies they have down there. It was a great experience. We also went through Shabba Forest Preserve, saw the historic marker, and then had lunch at the golf course. And I can see all that there can be to promote the outdoor and recreation right here in DeKalb County. You don't have to go to northern Michigan or northern Wisconsin to feel like you've really, kind of gotten into God's green acres. So that was a lot of fun. The other presentation we had at our meeting was by Alex Narad, Executive Director of the Egyptian Theater, and also President of the DeKalb Area Arts Council. He's pointing out that on October 6th, we're going to have our first DeKalb NIU Art Walk that will go to 24 participating venues throughout DeKalb. And there'll be a chance for music then at the Egyptian that evening to wrap up the night. So they hope this is something that takes off and only grows. And then they're launching a sculpturing contest or competition. And I wonder...
It's going to be, that'll be starting in, hopefully, December, in 2017. And they'll be inviting all different sculptors, people to come around. And what they'll do is have them placed all over the city of DeKalb, and then they will take votes on them. And the winning sculptor will be bought and placed in a very prominent place with DeKalb. And they'll bring it back again the next year to be a rotating every year, different sculptors. Maybe we can have a nice sculptor right there at our new jail.
Go.
But anyway, that was Mr. Nerad's point of view, that this hopefully will create more traffic for the area, more tourism in the downtown area, especially with that arts concert that they have. And one other thing that was in there, for all you imbibers, drink DeKalb. Actually, it says that's what it is, drink it all in. But all these places are, there's the Cadman Brewing Company in Genoa, the Forge Brewer in Sycamore. There's John McNaughton's Brewing, what they call apple wines. And you have the Prairie State Winery in Genoa. You also have the Prairie on State Wine and Cellars in Sycamore. The Waterman Winery right here is Waterman, and the Whiskey Acres. So they are handing out these to people to bring in more tourism to it. So very interesting.
It's not just about milk anymore.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's all we have.
Mr. Stoddard.
Is the Sheriff's Department going to be patrolling the streets after that?
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
We'll hear from the women's president.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Finance met last week. We have 10 delinquent properties to sell. They'll be all lumped together in one resolution, so that'll go relatively quickly. The big thing we did was got our first look at the budget for the year. As anticipated, it's a harsh budget. We needed to bring our revenues down to match our expenditures, or say that the other way around. Our expenditures down to match our revenues, which are not going up all that much. So there will be some cuts in there, and there's going to be some hard decisions to make. The one bit of good news is because we paid off the nursing home, that levy will expire. So actually, I guess the county's portion of the tax bill will go down a little bit.
That's great.
So that's something you can point out to your constituents who say it never goes down. Well, this year it might. This year it will. That said, we did vote to put the board will vote finally next week, but we voted to put the budget on display for the public. I certainly encourage everybody to take a look at it. We will have a workshop, probably at 6 o'clock next week, to go over the budget details, as we always do. The appeal process, I think everybody's been through it already, so you know what it's like. But you have to get your appeals in by September 30th. That's going to be the deadline. And then the various committees will consider them and act upon them. So September 30th is the key date. If you do decide to appeal something, ask that position be kept in the budget rather than cut or whatever. just keep in mind that anything that requires more spending, you have to identify the source of the spending, either cut someplace else or say we're going to dip into our reserves that are at the minimum level that we feel it's prudent to have them at. So I think, unless you're very, very cleverer than Pete and Gary, which I doubt, those are your options if you choose to make an appeal. That's it.
Paul, has the management recommendation letter gone to all the board members?
The management recommend.
You know, the overview.
I don't think that's gone out yet.
We post on the website right away, but I did not send it out separately. But we can do that.
Right, because I think that's always very interesting. It's your view
Yes.
on
What's been identified and
what's going to happen.
We'd like everybody to read that before the
Yes.
forum, so
Yes.
we'll send that out separately, but it has been on the website.
I think there are about 55 items on this one.
It's very detailed, and the committee had a nice discussion.
It's always a very good overview.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions for Paul? Okay, we'll start.
Okay, we ended up having our meeting on August 23rd at the Salmonock Library in Salmonock. Out of that, we've got our budget on file. And the thing that's nice about the budget is that we have the total dollars for the 2017 budget are going to be exactly the same as the 2016. The tax rate and the Forest Preserve district costs still represent less than 1% of the citizens' tax bill with that. So we'll be voting on that. And then the other item that we'll be voting on will be for the lowest bid for the newest forest preserve that we have, and that bid is going to Curran Contracting Company. We are still waiting on the FEMA permits at Sycamore Forest Preserve, but we have been told by staff that because of the way the agreement, the language was, that we should be able to, be okay to, go ahead and start doing things without their approval. Let's see, we've got, the reason that we met down at Salmonock was we've got an opportunity for a bicycle path to go ahead and to connect the library with Sannock Forest Preserve. We went into executive session on that, and we came out and voted to have an appraisal done, our own appraisal done, to see, what the cost would be on that. The thing that's really nice about down there is they have really made the library the center of everything. So all of the paths go from the schools, come to the library, which is really an awesome, thing to do, and that's a very nice little library down there. And then we've got all the engineering work completed for the road widening and the trails and all that stuff at the new forest preserve, and the costs are going to be about $340,000. But we have the lowest bid of $316,305.21, and that's what we'll be voting on for that. And we have to remember that we didn't pay anything for the land. We paid a lot of time, the planning and zoning did, but we didn't pay anything for that. And we also have a $100,000 anonymous donation that was given to us for that also. So, and then we talked about the picnic shelters and whether we're going to have those named for different people or groups, actually, the Veterans Memorial Shelter and Sycamore Lions Shelter. And so we talked about the fact, do we need to come up with some kind of process to go ahead and use to have naming rights for different things like that. So, anyway, that's what we talked about with that. And we will be having the memorial bench installed and a sycamore tree planted in memory of Frank Obarski. And so that will be coming up here pretty soon. And people are very excited about this forest preserve, bringing new business in and everything. The city manager from Sycamore is very excited about that and everything, and thinks that it's going to really draw a lot more business. So I think that's about it. Oh, and then also Misty had mentioned that there's a new coffee shop called Common Grounds that's in DeKalb, and they've recently joined the Pedal Pal. Any questions?
Oh, yes.
Is the bicycle path the same as it was a number of years ago?
Yes. No. You mean the one that we voted on before? We tried to, we've got pictures of it. They're on the website. I don't know if I'm trying to find my, yeah, you mean you're talking about where it's going to be? They've moved it, if I remember right, a little bit. It's not going to be, it's going to go around like on the property, you know, like here's Sanok right here. And it's going to go around this way instead of going along 34, if I remember right. Isn't that right?
It's never been going along the road.
Never
Right.
gonna go along 30, it never was gonna go along 34.
Okay, so it's
County line.
County line.
county, right,
And behind that house.
and behind, right,
It was gonna go around the north side of that house
right.
and then travel around the fence line and then.
It seems to me
It
that,
would make kind of a L shape.
right, it seems to me that they've moved something, now I can't remember. Have they, I don't remember, sorry.
Well, one time they're gonna go on the north side of the house and then they were gonna go parallel to county line and go right in front of the house. And then they were gonna follow a fence line, which was like L shaped.
Here,
It's gonna be out along the headlands of the cornfield.
We need to get you let Paul maybe know where it's at, and then.
Yeah,
look
it
up.
should be on the, well, I've got it in here somewhere.
Okay. We'll find it.
Yeah, it should be in here from the last meeting. The thing that was nice this time was the mother came. She's been involved this time, where this is the one that last time, oh, he's got it? Okay.
Well, I don't have the
Tim?
marker though. Come down. Go around. Somehow I've come.
I know it's in Terry's notebook.
While you're looking for that, Anita, a quick question. So is it still thought that maybe the grand opening could still be in the fall?
We're still hoping so, yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Maybe November or end of October?
End of October is what we're looking for
That'd
right
be
now.
excellent.
Maybe I took them
And that's
out.
just waiting for FEMA, right?
And that's, well,
Well, they
Well,
could
but all the
probably,
right, and so it's going to,
okay, I think you guys find it, Tim showed you?
did you
Okay,
find it?
saw it,
Okay,
yeah.
good, because I don't have it in
No.
here. I took that one out.
Now that you gentlemen saw
So
that,
have they
do you
moved
any
it a
additional
little bit?
questions, or-
You know, there was that one drainage ditch, wasn't there something, or?
It's like a waterway that sheds
Right.
quite a bit of water off of that farm field. And
Right.
I know that they were going to kind of be on the bottom of that waterway before.
Right, but I think that they haven't, I think that might be one of the things that they've addressed. Didn't they, Tim?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're addressing that, and so instead of having to, build something over, building that up, they've moved it, where they're gonna put it. So,
Any other questions? Okay. If I could get a motion then to approve moving this county board agenda forward. Moved by Ms. Turner, seconded by Mr. Emerson. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And county administrator report.
Okay, we had left the topic, so I didn't want to interrupt. I had texted Joan to see what the live streaming was, if she knew, and she said, obviously varies depending on the topic, if it's a hot one, but she says can spike to 75 or 100 people watching the live stream, or it can be as low as 10. But even then, after the fact, I'll often see about 50 people picking it up.
After it's not live anymore, but when they
Right.
put it as a recording.
So that's just, we'll try to get more data on that. But this last month, I spent a lot of time on the budget. That's probably been my main, and that in FOIA requests on this Dibble property. It was just insane how many things were coming in, and we did honor all of them except for one, which was they had FOIA'd some of Tracy's personal financial records, so we did say that was not a county public record, but it stemmed from actually comments made at a public hearing, so it's just something to
But
be
I have
aware
offered
of.
to give them to them on Saturday.
Yes. So he's
FYI.
To
volunteered
look
that.
at if they come to your property.
We come 8 o'clock Saturday morning.
As far as the jail, work is continuing on the foundation. You'll probably start seeing some basement walls coming up. The precast panels are going to be started next week. The construction of them, those are made out in Mount Pleasant, Iowa. And then hopefully by sometime in November, they'll start, well, maybe even October, they'll start arriving.
And you said they had some test ones up that
Yes.
they were able to look at and
they
make some
didn't like
changes
it
to.
exactly like them yet, so they're also going to be doing a field trip out to Mount Pleasant to make sure they get them exactly right. The one neat thing that they're doing is called 3D modeling, and so they're going through the entire building, starting at the basement, moving up, and they route where all the electrical wires are going, where all the plumbing goes, where all the HVAC, and they look for conflicts. And when they identify those, then it's a lot easier to change them on your software than when the workers are in the field and everybody's arguing whose problem that is, and that only costs us money at that point. So that's kind of a nice thing that Gilbane is doing to hopefully avoid a lot of costs down the road. Mark has been instrumental in getting us a couple classes set up. I think you've probably seen the mental health first aid training is coming. We have several sessions on that. Board members are certainly welcome if you want to. Just register ahead of time. That is an all-day session. And then we're having an active shooter training. That's going to be on October 6th and 12th. And that's a 2-hour session on each of those days. So those are coming up. As far as the show and tell, I think we got most of the economic development ones, but I don't know if any of you are aware that this is an appeal to heaven flag that if you want it, you can have it tonight. It's a souvenir. But there's a pastor going around to all 102 counties, Pastor Patrick Sheets of Peoria, and saying I guess a prayer for the financial mess the state is in, and to remind you of where I guess from his input where the answers are. So
that is very interesting.
Yes. Can we be expecting a check?
That'd be good for your.
Already have here. You want to take it?
Can we be expecting a check from?
Yeah.
If that's where the answers are.
Applications for the planning director closed September 23rd. We have 7 applications in so far. I'm expecting a lot more when we get right up to the deadline. All the other things have been mentioned, so I'm good.
And thank you for mentioning the trainings. That's something I forgot. I know I sent out or the email got sent out, and then I sent out a message just encouraging everybody to take it. But really is eye-opening type training where you just kind of experience a little bit more of what, we say mental health all the time, but what, it encompasses a whole lot of things. And it's not just for identifying in others, but maybe, even family members, yourself, anything else, and that kind of erasing that stigma that's out there sometimes of it's a criminal thing to have a mental illness. No, it's not. And so that's why I think it's a very important thing. And Deanna did share with me that there are several people that have already signed up and everything. Still waiting on the sheriff officers to kind of sign up. They've been busy, obviously, with the different things, but they've got their own special sessions.
And if our sheriff doesn't fill up, there's a special session for law enforcement.
And he's planning to bring a lot of people.
Right, we'll offer to other smaller departments.
Oh, that'd be great.
Come in if we have open seats.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
yes.
One other thing I didn't hear brought up is the incubator, and Mary Supple has done an outstanding job on that. But we have 2 more people who are going to be signed up to the incubator. And you mentioned that 3D, but one of the ladies who actually is working in the incubator already is into that 3D design for architectural stuff. So it's moving along. So I wanted to bring that up. It's moving along real good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
To date, have you had any change orders in the jail?
Yes, a great deal. I mean, I'm
Usually not a
probably
good thing.
no, it's usually not, but there's nothing horribly substantial at this point. But you do get a lot of. I signed one today with actually 0 cost, but they had to get the right color paints to match, and those are change orders. But they're maybe one of the probably $15,000 or $20,000. They had to, because of the soil conditions, they had to put mud slabs for the foundations, rough, or pour concrete before they put the foundation. You probably know more about it than I
Not
do.
really, but you're doing fine. Explaining it.
But so it's things like that. But what we were hoping, and it hasn't happened, is that you had just contaminated soil when you get down there, or some really bad conditions, and so.
So nothing too major.
Not too major, but they do happen.
Right.
I guess I hate to say regularly, but
Nothing that has blown the budget away.
no. So, and now that we're starting to come up, I think, to me, the risk is getting smaller all the time, and the 3D modeling is going to save a lot of logistical problems and costs, I think.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Yes.
It could go bad though anytime.
Right.
Since we were talking about the date for the possible next Health and Human Services, and we have several of our committee members, I was wondering if they would stop by and give me some potential dates before they leave the room.
You have to ask them though. They might just run out now. But okay, great. Any other questions, discussions? Okay, so if we get a motion to adjourn, moved by Ms. Turner, seconded by Mr. Emerson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?